So when I'm in the studio, my kind of loose plan is I'm just going to open up and I'm going to kind of talk and paint. You guys can ask questions. It's going to be really hard to keep it organized in any way, but I think that's maybe that's symbolically good. That's kind of the fun. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, here's some really good thoughts, and I'll just tell you what I think as this comes through. So Franz Klein, what he does is he draws automatically in his sketchbook or in his phone book. Then, okay, so in all of these stories, let's talk about when the judge shows up. And to me, there's the muse and the judge, and you kind of need them both to be in there. For me, the muse is this. The muse is this. The muse is this. Like that. Any really. Your spirit is moved. That's the muse. When your brain, the practicality of everything comes in, that's the judge. And you kind of need that. You got to have, you can't just, I mean, sure, maybe you can, but we're not just going to take a crayon and make a circle and call it a day unless you have incredible convincing skills that actually there are lots of artists that did it now that I'm thinking about it. So this idea of standards, let's do this. There's a couple of questions on standards. And then save any practical stuff for tomorrow. You'll see. I use all sorts of materials. I use all sorts of, none of this is oil-based because I need them to dry fast, but it's ink, it's acrylic, it's pencil, it's marker, it's watercolor, it's gouache, I have a box and I love just I'm disabling my judge by having a mess. So I was going to answer something about standards. So like the Impressionists did have a standard, and so did the Piss Christ guys. The standard was we're moving away from the Academy. And there wasn't a cohesive way to do that yet, but everyone agreed that's what they want to do. That's why they're all getting drunk and syphilis in the bars, because they felt like a bunch of renegades. And so being a renegade, and that all got set up. I love, if you haven't seen the BBC documentary on the Impressionists and the Post-Impressionists, I don't even know what it's called. I think it's just called the Impressionists. They illustrate beautifully the dynamic of where Manet and Degas sort of light this fire. And it's great because Pizarro's maybe the greatest character in all of art history, because he was kind of older than all of them, but he was like rebellious. He was the rebellious mentor first. Then he was the innovator. Then he was the rebellious mentor. Then he was the participant, and then he was an innovator so he was like pre-impressionism, impressionism, and post-impressionism. And the way he mingled in with all those guys. So that's kind of a big answer. I'm glad you asked that question. There was a standard. It was still the academic standard, but they knew it had to be jumbled somehow, and they knew they had to show their brushstrokes. That was a big part of it. They knew they had to use colors that were not Rembrandt style colors, not browns and all of that kind of stuff. So the standard may not have been, critiquable, but there was something was in the air, and they were all responding to that. And same thing with why we don't think kids, generally 3-year-olds, we don't need to. Like there's no, what purpose would it be? And I'll go back to politics. Something that I think is, it's negative, but I think observing it is helping all of us who are having a tough time. Is, something became unavoidable. However you think everything is or happened or whatever, doesn't matter. So there was something that had to change. So that was and so people unified around that feeling of something needing to change on both sides. That something radical had to happen, and something radical happened. So let's hope a little bit of stability. My brain wants stability. I'm losing my brains. Sorry. And I will say too, I know I kind of dance around all this stuff, and those of you who are friends with me on Facebook know where I stand. But I have friends on both sides, and I have good, smart, caring, people who give their time to all sorts of important causes on both sides. So it's not gloom and doom. And if you're in my class and we would disagree on some things, I can totally, my whole family, I can appreciate just about the whole spectrum. And then I was going, maybe I'll just end it with, Laura asked about the brush for a scribble. Sometimes, yes, sometimes I like to switch over to pencils when I can. Franz Klein, oh, thanks. Thank you, Nancy. Yes, you guys got to keep me on track about Franz Klein copying and about the idea of copying in general. This will come up when I go from small to large. We have a whole week where we're going to talk about that. Franz Klein does his automatic little drawings, and then he tears them out. Then the judge shows up. The judge picks. That's where I went off the rails on the story. The judge chooses the ones that kind of meet the standards. That's the judge's job. And then in a sense, the mechanic shows up. I would never be able to paint like that. He projects them onto the canvas, traces them, and then he puts a little, like he'll put a little white around it and let it drip through, and then he'll put the black on and stuff like that. But at that point, for me, once I'm past, once the projector shows up, for me, I disappear. I just can't, that was my illustrator job, and I didn't like it then. I don't want to do it now. I'm not an illustrator of my own sketches. It's a whole new painting, and being able to manage that space is an important thing. We'll talk about that for a whole week. That's going to be the topic in 2 weeks. Next week, we'll talk about color preference, and then the week after that's all about scale. Thank you, Nancy, for keeping me honest. And Kathy's asking if Klein's judge shows up too early. For me, yeah, everybody's going to have their different, that's what finding your voice is, the process of exploration, choosing things that are keepable, bringing them back, configuring them, and then judging it and see where that stuff goes. And all of those things play their part. You just have to know, the joke I often use is, the coach is not the player, and neither of them are the game. The coach has his job or her job, player has his or her job, and then the game is out. The game is what everybody's there for. It's not just the coach. I'm not an illustrator of my own sketches. Yeah, I hope not to be. I'm a sketcher. I'm just a sketcher, period. I want fresh, and I want scribbles, and I want all that kind of stuff. If I could just live on sketches, that's all I would do. And when I do big stuff, I try to keep my mind in sketch mode, which is why the iPad's so great. Everything on an iPad, you just feel like you're always sketching. Okay, so maybe that's it. I'm a little fried, my brain. I'm gonna need to rest, getting a little hot brain. So tomorrow, just sort of I'll send out the link and just kind of be checking your emails. I don't know how early I can get in there, but it's the earliest I can get set up, and I will send out an announcement that, hey, I'm here, whenever you guys are ready. And just, you don't have to plan. I'm going to record everything and I'll post it. You don't have to plan a certain time to be there. But it's important to me to have the chance to show you what I'm talking about. And as I said before, this is like, I believe, the most important thing that I can teach. And it's the most important thing I can learn and think about my own self. Okay, whew. Anyway, let's all, I'm gonna unmute. Let's all give a big shout out. Ready? Oops. Crap. Let me see here. Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks everyone. Thank you for letting me go down this path. I know it's not always comfortable, but man, once you're there, it's pretty spectacular. Here, I gotta do one quick thing and then we'll go. All right, let's all say hi in 3, 2, 1, go.
Thank you. Lovely. Great. Tomorrow. Bye. Bye.
Guys.
Bye.